Okay, let's go.
Right, the yoga of dejection. The first chapter of the Gita points to a stage when one's soul starts to rise to the surface of our awareness, creating instability, disruption, and turbulence. It causes one's normal identification with the ego and life to lose its hold over our consciousness. If intense enough, it shifts the foundation of one's orientation to themselves and their lives.
All right. So I'm going to share with you what happened for me with my awakening. It first started with this huge recognition of the orientation of my outer life, so I couldn't be with my brother when he was visiting, who I love dearly and who loves me dearly. Because as he was going down the driveway with his kids leaving, and I recognized it was in that moment that I recognized I hadn't had the time. They were just upstairs to hang out with them. And it set something up in my human that opened me up to an anguish far beyond the circumstances. That something had been arising already that had me feel anguish when my brother drove down the driveway. Something that had been there that had its own anguish. And it's in that moment that I awakened. And I saw multiple lives that I have lived. Being a Nazi, having shut down my heart, having shut down my psychic being, and been an instrument for the power and the dark nectar and the opportunity of that time. And then a whole series of self-hate was unfolded that was underneath my accomplishments as a purpose, as a human being, and my being a good man and being a good soul, and having known God in my imaginings and in my higher vital for moments, and having psychic events happen periodically that would touch to something, and that's where I wanted to go, not here, I wanted to go there. So the anguish was so deep that something broke all the way down in my karmic history. And then I didn't know what happened, but I lost consciousness. And when I came back, the whole universe was mine. So that was an awakening. And why did it continue? That was a question I had for myself. Why didn't it go like LSD? I took LSD 160 times trying to hang on to the little piece of, sensory alteration that it brought, And that get me really suspicious about anything that comes, seems glorious, but goes. But the anguish was so deep that the anguish itself was the thing I sought. The anguish itself was this huge love. It never goes away. It's the experiencing of the consequences of being the separation, of causing separation, of creating suffering, of being the cruel, violent, uncaring, selfish, all of that buried into that same quantum of anguish. It was in the recognition of the depths of the darkness of my Asat that I had inherited as a human being, as a child of my father and my mother and their ancestors. It was the whole thing. And what came at that moment, I believe, was unique in that at that time I couldn't recognize it, but later I could, as the sought. And it was going to have its way. regardless of my worthiness or unworthiness, or my shame, or my anguish. And it did this through the mother. Why did it happen to me? But the nature of this is it doesn't happen like this for everyone. What dejection often is encountering a misery that arises from within that doesn't have anything to do with the circumstances, that takes all the joy out of life, takes all possible futures and dissipates them. All fond memories and attachments is losing their significance. It strips you away to the Brahman. It's not the Sat, to the Brahman. And you become the emptiness. Now, what happens with that nature of that awakening is everything in you that's not ready, everything in you that has denied that you could possibly die or that anything wrong could ever happen to you, everything in you that's invested in your fantasies, in your dreams, in your desires, or in your ambitions, they won't let that disappear. But there will be a period of anguish where everything you lived loses meaning. Now, what allows for this to happen also is when you experience the consequences of your previous choices. Someone who's caught in their dejection, or in their addictions, or in their raging, or in their selfishness, and the awakening happens amidst that. And then there's this that takes away all meaning, all purpose, all future. And then that can create a trauma. It can create a physical violent event. It can create, it can incapacitate you in showing up for anything in life. You lose all the part of your authority that came from your human ego. These are often a sign of a possible effort of awakening. And in the modern world, this might be seen as depression or bipolar or whatever they may label, long COVID, where it just seems to strip everything away from you. It's not seen as a grace. It's seen as something to fix, to get rid of, to make better. And because you're the authority, it withdraws and you get better. But it's a false better. It's like a frozen lake where the crust is thin. And all you have to do is keep running along on it, and it seems fine, and then you're back into your dejection. Because it won't relent until you've met it, and it's had its time. But you can't recreate it. I mean, you just pretend in some way. Maybe it's supplemented by the drugs. Maybe it's supplemented by someone new in your life. Maybe it's temporarily soothed because of a change in circumstances, or perhaps you have a enthusiastic group of people that you participate, and there's this sense of being uplifted beyond yourself. But if you haven't met what's left in the quantum of your dejection, if you haven't developed the strength to be able to be with it, then it will keep sneaking into your life and taking away meaning and purpose and bringing you to that empty meaninglessness. It is a truth, but it's not a truth that has any relevancy to your existence or why you were born or what it was that was possible for you as a human being to bring into existence. It strips it all away unnecessarily because it's the nature of the Asat. Now, there are other kinds of spiritual awakenings that aren't dejection, and they occur, as it did for me, as a breaking away of the shroud, of their separative identity, not permanently, but significantly. And when the breaking of the shroud comes open, there's this sense of great love, great expansion, great connection, especially if there's a spiritual being who's gone beyond dejection in your life. It could be a family member. It could be a teacher. If you're in the field of someone like that, then in your dejection, you're actually quite receptive. If you look at Arjuna in the book, in the first chapter, his dejection, he had terrible choices, and he literally did not know. He could kill anybody. He had the capacity with his skill as a warrior to just shoot arrows and never be touched. And every one of his arrows will hit you right through the eye and kill you. It was like a miraculous power. So he didn't want to do that. He wasn't feared for his own life. He feared for the harm he would carry on those people he would kill. And what did he do? Well, he had a handy guy right there driving his chariot. And he stepped up to it and played his part. And there you have the Gita. So what happens with awakening is a grace comes in one form or another. A teacher will be found. An avenue will be found. It may not be the ultimate truth, but it'll be enough for the quality of your consciousness to come out of the dejection enough so you have more ability to be with it. And there becomes a discerning capacity that arises out of that process. In dejection, you can't do anything. It has to have its time. When it first comes, it will go in the dejection is evidence that the Asat has come. And the undoing of what it is that was able to allow you to be as you knew yourself to be is greatly reduced. Even if you build yourself back up, you can't remain separate from an awakening. Inevitably, you'll have to cross that bridge from your human life and what happens beyond in your spiritual life. It is a process. It can take lifetimes. I've known people, and I see them, that they're still caught. Yet they have been able to come out. They haven't progressed. They haven't been able to come out because the forces were not able to come in and support them in coming out. They were closed to them, or they were circumstantially not available, or there were other events happening in their life that didn't allow them to receive it. So that's dejection. It's a terrible and wonderful thing. It's evidence of the grace and proof that there is a greater truth. But at this point, you can't know that. When you're in dejection, being around someone who's high sattva, or someone who themselves is further along in the journey, can be a great aid. If you can be with multiple people who have had their time with dejection, through their knowing what dejection is, through their own experience, they can hold you and empower you to know that what's happening has a purpose, that it's not forever, that has a beginning and a middle and an end. And that can give strength for your ability to go through that chasm